Hello everybody, June here. This is video number 2 in the vintage cape coat construction series. In the last video I shared with you the pattern, the fabric, the lining, some thoughts I had on the whole thing, and in this video we're getting down to construction. First, I'm going to show you the muslin. I'm going to tell you the alterations that I will need to make to the pattern, and then we're going to get to the actual cutting of this wool and this silk part and the putting it together. And that, my friends, it is a terrifying thought, so I hope you stick around. Okay, so here's a muslin of just the coat part of the cape coat. I will say that right off the bat, before I even cut muslin, I cut 6 inches off the hem of the coat part and of the cape part because I knew that it would be too long. I did a very rough tissue fitting and it was just too long, and I wanted it on me to be the same length that is on the drawing on the pattern, and that is just below the knee. So right off the bat I went ahead and I cut off 6 inches off the bottom, and on this side I have it unhemmed, and on this side is the hemmed version. So this is, it's not a hem, it's actually just folded up for the facing and not the facing, for the lining, but this is how it will look as the final length of the cape, or the coat part of the cape coat. I'm gonna mess that up every single time. So with all that said, I actually think that the fit is pretty great. I haven't done anything except for shortening it. This is right out of the envelope, and I think the fit is really good. The armholes fit just like they should. They are high up but not too high up that it's uncomfortable. And obviously I don't have the collar, but I do have the lapel because it's cut on. And I think it's great. I do think that the bust darts do need to come down approximately about ½ inch to 3/4 of an inch, and that is really all I have to do. And this is not going to have any kind of closures, so there's no snaps, no buttons, no anything like that. It is closed together by a belt made of the same fabric. So I'm gonna close it using a belt from another robe that I have, just to show you what it will look like. So this is it, and I can't see very well on this little tiny screen, so you're gonna have to trust me that it's all going to work out in the end. So this is what it will just look like, cinched in. And like I said in the first video, I will put in some belt buckles, I cannot word today, some belt loops on each side here to make sure that the belt stays in place when I'm wearing it. And of course there's an ambulance. Okay, the ambulance is gone. So this is what the coat part of the cape coat will look like. It needs very minor alteration, and this red line here is where the cape is going to be attached. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the cape on and show you what it looks like with the cape. Okay, so here I have already attached the cape, although if you can see in the back, I'm not doing all of the cape, I'm just doing enough to see how it's going to fit. And I can see right away, which I have already done off camera, I can see that there is just too much fabric here at the shoulder raglan, and it just has to come off this much. Let me get a little closer to see if you can see it. Right, so all of this here is excess fabric that I need to take out when I go do the alterations on the pattern, on the actual paper pattern itself. It's that. But other than that, I think the cape is good, and it's not obviously I haven't done it full length, but it's not as wide as I thought that it would be, which is a good thing. Okay, so here's the bust dart, and I've traced it in green so that you can see it. So to lower it, what I'm going to do is draw a box around the dart. And I have kept the grain line intact here just so that I don't you know, mess that up in the process. But I'm going to draw a box around the dart like this, and then probably go to about this line after the dart. And close it off here. I am going to cut the box out and literally slide it down however much my dart needs to move. So my dart needs to move approximately a half to about 3/4 of an inch. So that's what I'm going to do. And once you've positioned the dart where it needs to go, just tape the piece down at the bottom or at the top, depending on whether you moved it up or down. To the side here, because you'll see that I maintain that line. And then you fill this gap by just sliding some paper underneath, making sure everything is straight, and you go ahead and tape that as well. Now you can take the new piece and just sort of roughly or as accurately as you want, just join it together. And now you have lower your dart. So then you just go ahead and cut out the excess paper, and that is your new dart placement on your pattern piece. Okay, so here's the fabric unfolded. I have been utterly and completely terrified of cutting into this for a variety of reasons. Mostly I've been concerned with how I'm going to finish the seams on the cape, because the cape part of this is not lined, so you will be able to see the wrong side. And even though the wrong side looks exactly like the right side, I still want it to look nice. I'm still not 100% sure how I'm gonna do that. The fabric doesn't fray, but I don't want to leave the seams raw. So I'll cross that bridge when I get to that. It's not a process that is gonna stop me from actually being able to construct the garment. It's something that I need to deal with when I get to it. The other thing that has been concerning me is the belt. So this fabric is pretty thick, and the belt is folded on itself, right sides together and then folded out. As you can imagine, folding out a long, thin strip of fabric is difficult as it is. It will be even more difficult with a very thick fabric. So I have 5 yards of this fabric, which is more than what the pattern calls for. So I'm not worried about this step I'm going to take right now. What I'm gonna do is actually start with a belt. I am going to cut the belt from the fabric, and I'm going to sew it and see how that works out. Because if that works out well, then I can cut the rest of the garment and get to sewing and making it up. Let's get started. Alright, so I'm off camera because when I left you last, I was cutting the belt, and then I got sick, and I think you can probably hear it in my voice, and so I still look like an absolute mess. But I'm making somewhat of a bit of progress here. So the belt worked. I ended up having to add this much from the original measurements. The original measurements of the belt was, I think, 54 inches, and I ended up adding about 17 inches because I didn't feel the belt was long enough. So the belt worked. It's been turned out. This is the hand stitching all done. So I moved on to cutting the front of the coat part of the cape coat, and I did that a couple days ago. I did the darts. I used a combination of chalk and I tried tailor's tacks, but that was
interesting. And because the fabric is so thick, I had to cut one side at a time. I couldn't do a double layer. So in the end, I decided to be honest with the tailor's tacks, because I made the markings on the inside of the pieces that were going to be lined anyway. The little chalk marks are not going to show, and the fabric is double-sided, so it's double cloth, so it won't transfer to the other side. But I did that, and then I started to panic. This kept me up last night. I was trying to decide whether the fabric was too thick to take a good pressing for the hem to make it look decent eventually. And I started to panic because I didn't think that it was. I thought that, I've cut into this fabric, I've wasted just over a yard, probably like a yard and a half, and this is just not gonna work. So this morning I got up, I ate my breakfast, I composed myself, and I decided to try pressing the fabric on a scrap. So this is a leftover from cutting the fronts of the coat. What I did was, my biggest concern was with the hem precisely, because it is so thick and the hem is not attached to the body of the coat. It's loose, being held up by the lining. I didn't want things to... The camera very rudely cut me off there with its full memory card. But what I was saying is that my biggest concern has always been with the hem, because the hem is just folded and it's not actually physically attached to the body of the coat, or the cape for that matter. It's just being held by the lining. I was concerned that the pressing wouldn't be enough to hold it in place without making it look floppy. So what I did was take a piece of scrap and press it as if it was the hem. Press and steam, of course, as if it was the hem, including the double fold here. So that would be the corner of both the cape and the coat part at the front. So as you can see, it actually works just fine. The fabric does take the pressing just fine, and it will stay. Now, of course, once the whole thing is constructed, I will tack that down by hand. But it was fine. It worked out fine, and it kept me up all of last night. But I think I'm just panicking because I can't remember if I said this already, but the fabric is pretty expensive. And I'm just terrified to mess it up. So I think what's gonna have to happen is that I'm just gonna have to do it, because it'll be one of those things that all along the process I'm going to second guess my choice of fabric. I'm going to second guess everything because of the fabric. So it won't be until it is done that I say, okay, finally this works. So yes, that is where I stand right now with this coat. I think this part of the video it hasn't already gotten long enough, so I'm going to close this one here now, and I will put the rest of the construction in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Hopefully I won't be sick till then. Bye.